Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're adding first video to a new playlist titled Let's Build Something. And the first thing that we're going to build is a simple rock, paper and scissors game. We'll be building this game using vanilla JavaScript and we'll also use NodeJS. The reason we need NodeJS is I want it to be a real-time game. And to do that, we'll leverage Socket.io for WebSocket communication. We'll be building the game logic first and then we'll beautify it using CSS. Before we start coding, let's have a quick look at what we'll be building. We'll be building a simple multiplayer rock, paper, scissors game where one user can come in and create a game. Once they do that, they'll get a unique code with which the other user can join. So if I share that code with someone else, they can join using that code. Once both the players are ready, then the game begins. So let's say player 1 makes a choice. Now player 2 knows that player 1 made a choice but don't know what that choice is. So they'll play their move and based on the choices made by them, they'll either win or lose. So in this case, player 1 chose rock and player 2 chose scissors. So player 1 won and player 2 lost. Let's code it up now. I've broken the implementation into these 13 simple steps. This is going to help me in staying on track, and also this is going to help you in following the tutorial. So let's start with step 0, which is to create the rock, paper, scissors folder. Now the next thing that we'll be doing is we'll be creating a node app, and to do that I'll just run npm init inside that folder. Okay, package name will be rock, paper, scissors. Description I'll just leave it blank for right now. Entry point will be index.js. I'll put my name as the author here and it looks good. Okay, now the next thing that we'll be doing is step number 2. We'll be installing Express and NodeMon. We need Express for serving the HTTP endpoints, and NodeMon we are only using to refresh our application whenever a file change is detected. So I'll go ahead and create index.js, and inside index.js I want to use Express. To be able to use Express, I'll have to add it first. So I'll just type npm install Express. We can see it's added here to the dependencies of my package. Then we can create the Express app. And now I'll be creating a HTTP server using the app. Let's create a root endpoint, or rather I'll create a test endpoint. So let's say test RPS app running. And next thing, we'll just run this server. I'll be running it on port number 3000. It's good. We can now run it using node space index.js. Now when we go to our browser and go on port 3000, says cannot get slash. That's fine because we have not defined slash. If we go to /test, then it says RPS app running. Instead of calling this test, let's just call it health check. That's the general practice. Okay, now when I did that change, I had to restart my server manually. To avoid that, let's install NodeMon. Okay, it added NodeMon. I can see it in the dependencies. Now I can run my app. Earlier I was running it using node space index.js. Now I'll just write nodemon index.js. So it runs in monitoring mode. So now when I'm hitting the health check endpoint, it's saying RPS app running. Now if I change it to say a h1 tag, when I do a refresh, I did not have to restart the server. That's why we're using nodemon. Let's get back to these steps. We have done 0, 1, 2. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to create a client folder. That is where our UI is going to be. So I'll just create a client folder here. Inside client folder, I can have one index.html file, then a style.css for styling. And I also want to have one let's call it client.js. This is where the client side's socket IO code is going to be. So let's generate HTML. Paper, scissors game. I'll add a CSS link, which will be to style CSS, and I'll add a JavaScript link, which will be to /client.js. Now, in order to serve this index.html from my Node app, I'll have to add that endpoint to my index.js. So it will be whenever you find a request on root, we'll be sending this file. So present directory and then client/index.html. Let's see it in action. When I do a refresh on health check, it's fine. But when I go to root, it gave me a couple of errors saying style CSS not found and also client.js not found. But I think the HTML loaded, that's why we can see it. That's what we can see in the title here. To serve the static content, I'll again use Express. So let me just use the path package here, and I'll just instruct my app to use this static path, which is from present directory and then the client folder. Now when we go back, we do a refresh. I don't get any errors. Let's try writing some JavaScript to see it is working as expected. Client.js loaded or executing. For index.html, let's say we give a h1 tag. Welcome to rock, paper, and scissors game. Okay, so we have our JS in place and the HTML is working. Now we can move on to the next step. So we have completed step 3 and 4. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to install the socket IO package. So I'm going to shut off my server, just write npm install socket.io. Okay, socket.io is installed. Now we'll use it. Let's first create a socket on the server side, which we can connect to. So using socket.io, we can use its server object to create a new server. Now on this IO, we can listen on connection. So on connection, we can simply log that a user is connected. That's on the server side. Now on the client end, and since both client and server are running on the same port, so we can simply initialize socket IO with just this. We don't even have to give the server path here because it's the same path. Oops, I'll have to execute my server. So whenever a client will connect, I should get a server log saying a user connected. Say I refresh. Okay, I don't get anything because it's saying IO is not defined. That is because when I'm using socket IO, I'll have to import that on the client end also. So we'll be using socket.io.js, and now this function should be enabled. Do a refresh, I don't get any errors, and on the server I get a log, a user connected. If I open this in a new tab, I get 2 users who are connected now. If I close a tab, I don't know how many users are connected. For that, we can simply, okay, I didn't have to restart this. Run it. We can simply add another hook to our socket object. And that is socket.onDisconnect. So whenever a connection gets disconnected, it will log user disconnected. Let's see. So I refresh. So I get 3 logs, a user connected, then because I refreshed, user disconnected, then a user connected again. If I create a new tab, it says a user connected. When I close a tab, a user gets disconnected. So with that, we have tested our connection. We're done with step number 6. Now we'll come to the actual implementation of the rock, paper, scissors game. And we'll be writing the create game and join game function. So before writing those functions, let's put those elements in place that will be executing those functions. Say I create a div with ID initial. Inside that div, I want to have a button that says create game. And when I click on that button, create game function will get called. So on my client.js, I'll create a function, create game. And what this function is going to do is it will inform the server that the client wants to create a game, and it will do that with the help of sockets. So using socket, I'll emit the create game event. And now on my server, I have to handle the create game event. So when the server will receive a create game event, it will do something. So when we're playing the rock paper scissors game, we need 2 players, and there can be hundreds of players connected, but a game will always be between 2 players. So I'll be creating different rooms, and then in each room we can have 2 players, and then you can join a room and you can invite your friend who can then join the same room, and then you can play together. I have to create a room now, and for that we need a unique ID. So let's just get something from Stack Overflow and we can just use it. So this is our create game button. Search generate random string in JavaScript, and let's use this function. So it needs length as a parameter. So I'll just use that here. And I can use that as the room ID, room unique ID. Equals make ID. Let's say the length we're keeping is 6. Now I'll add an entry for this room in our rooms dictionary. So this will go as a key, and I'll just keep it as a blank object for now. The next thing that we want to do is we want to connect the incoming client to this room. For that, we'll just use socket.join and then join that room. Also, we'll emit an event to the client, which is for a new game. Like the client wants to create a game and then the server will return a new game. That's how it is. And we'll just return back the ID. Okay, so that was the create game function on our client, and then the implementation on our server where we are creating a room for 2 players. Okay, right now when we click on it, we don't see anything happening. That's fine. Now what should happen when the client will receive a new game event? So let's code that. Before that, let's follow these steps. We also want the join game function to be implemented first. So when you're landing on the web page on this rock paper scissors game, you can either create your own game, or let's say if I'm inviting you, then you can join an existing game. So let's do that. Let's write or and give one more button to join a game. Now when you're joining a game, you should know the room that you want to join to, because when you're creating a game, a new room will be created for you. But when you're joining a game, you need to know the room unique ID. So we'll give an input so that the user can enter that ID, and give it the ID room unique ID, and the button join game will call the join game function. So in client, we'll implement the join game function. And what that is going to do is it will fetch the room's unique ID from the input. So we can do that by document.get element by ID, get that text input and then get its value. Once we have that, we can tell the server that someone wants to join a game, and we can share the room's unique ID with the server. Then again, we come to our server. Just how we have handled the create game event, we'll handle the join game event. Let's see what we'll do inside that. Inside join game, we'll first check if a room exists or not. And it is receiving some data which we're sending from here, which is an object with room unique ID as a key. So if in my rooms, if there is a room with room unique ID, so if that value is not null, then you can join the incoming request to the same room. Okay. And to all the users, or to the one user who's already in that room, we can emit an event, say players connected, because one player was already there. When the second player will join, we can say both the players are now connected and they can play rock paper scissors. Also, we'll emit the same to the caller. So we're emitting it to the room, also to the caller who's player 2, who just joined. Okay, we'll handle this players connected later on, but we have join game in place now. Let's just see it in action. Okay, you can either create a game or you can join a game by entering the room ID. Not functioning right now, but we have the events in place. So whenever we're clicking create game or join game, we are sending a socket request to the server, and then server is handling those with the code we have just written. Now the next step is we have to implement the new game socket. Like when the client asked the server that you have to create a new game, the server emitted that yes, now we have a new game and this is the room's unique ID that you have to use. The client has to accept that and use that room. So far we have not received anything on the client, we are only emitting. So we'll add a socket.on new game. So when we receive a new game message from the server, server is returning in new game, it's returning the room unique ID. So we'll use that. So let me use that with the data variable and let maybe a const, that will be better. And let's use a room unique ID here, which will initially be null. And then whatever is coming from the socket, from the server when we're creating a new game, we'll just save that. And now we'll create our play area. So let's go to HTML, let's create a div with ID gameplay. And then let's create one more with ID waiting area. And one more with game area. Okay, and then so there's a waiting area, game area, and then result area, which we'll call winner area. Okay, we'll hide and show these based on the events happening throughout the user's interaction with the page. So in waiting area, we don't need anything. And whenever we have a new game, we'll set the display of initial to none. So this element where we are saying you can either create a game or join a game. So whenever a new game is started, we can just stop displaying that and show the gameplay area. For gameplay, we can initially keep the display to none. So it will be displayed by, it will be hidden by default. And once the game is started, then the gameplay's display can be changed to block. And in the waiting area, we'll just write waiting for opponent. So get the waiting area and change its inner HTML to waiting for opponent. Please share the room unique ID to join. Okay, let's see how this will look now. So when we click on create game, it will go to the server. The server will emit new game and then we'll hide this and show the message. Okay, so we get waiting for opponent. Please share this code to join. Now I want to do one more thing here. When we're getting this random generated code, I want to give a hot link to copy that code. And we can do that easily. So let's create a button element. Let's call it copy button. And let's say we're setting its text to copy code, setting the display to block. And on its click, we are adding an event listener. And whenever a user will click on this button, copy code, we'll copy the room unique ID to the clipboard of user. Okay, and we'll just log that to the console. And once we are done creating that button, we'll append it to our waiting area. Okay, now when we click on create game, it says waiting for, let me zoom in a bit. It says waiting for opponent, please share this code to join. Now when I click copy code, I paste, that code gets copied. Okay, So with that out of the way, let's continue. So we have the new game in place now. When you're creating a new game, we are at a point when we are waiting for the next person to join. And for that, we have to implement the players connected. Players connected is getting emitted from the server when the second user is joining the game. So let's handle that on the client. So we can write socket.on players connected. We'll again get some data. We don't need it actually. Yeah, we're not emitting anything. So earlier we displayed the waiting area, but whenever the second player joins, the waiting area should go away. So we'll just say set its display to none. Let's try this. And I'm going to open two tabs simultaneously so that we can mimic two users. And let me just put them side by side. Okay, so from here I create a game, I copy the code, and I paste this code here, and I join the game. As soon as I'll join the game, players connected event will be triggered. Okay, so we see something got removed from here. Now, when the waiting area is removed, we have to show the game area where you'll make the choice whether you want to go with rock, paper, or scissor. So we'll say set the display of game area to block. Let's also write the content of our game area. In our game area, we simply need to input user's choice. So I'll just write say you, and then here one choice. I'm just creating three buttons which will call the send choice function with rock, paper, and scissor arguments, and we'll implement this function in a minute. Okay. And then we'll also show the opponent's move here, and we'll just use player 2 choice diff. Okay. So now when we run this, say we create a game, we use this code. When the next user joins the game, now you can select rock, paper, or scissors. Okay. But nothing changed on the join game side. So the user who created the game got to the play area, but the user who joined the game stayed there. So let's change that too. So the players connected event is getting emitted to the caller also. So we should have seen the game area. We'll check that in a minute. And let's also remove the initial area when the players get connected. So let's try it one more time. Let's create a game. Let's say you join a game. No, that's working as expected. You can select rock, paper, scissors, and the other player can also select rock, paper, and scissors. Now, here we can show what the opponent is doing. We of course don't have to reveal their choice, but we can at least tell the user whether they have made a choice or not. So for that, we can simply write here the opponent choice. Initially, it will be waiting for opponent. Okay, so now when we run this, we create a game. The other user joins the game, and both of them are now waiting for the other player. Now, when this player clicks on either rock, paper, or scissors, or this player clicks on rock, paper, scissors, this should change to opponent made a move. Okay, so we'll come to that. Okay, with that we have implemented the players connected socket. Now we'll implement the send choice function, which is the function that gets called when the user clicks on these buttons. So in send choice, we'll have to identify which is player 1 and which is player 2. And the identification is very simple. The person who's creating the game is by default player 1, and the person who's joining the game is player 2. So when we're calling the create game, we'll keep one more global variable, say player 1, which will initially be false. But if you're creating the game, then you are player 1. So we'll set player 1 to true. Okay. Now when we are sending the choice, we can accordingly send whether this choice is by P1 or by P2. And for that, we'll add a ternary check. If player 1, then the event is P1 choice, otherwise the event is P2 choice. And from here, we'll just emit that event. When we're emitting the choice, we're sending that whether that's choice of P1 or of P2. And then we also have to send whether it's rock, paper, or scissor. So that will go in the body here as RPS. Let's say it's RPS value. And we also have to send in which room is that decision being taken. Because player 1 can choose rock and player 2 can choose paper in room 1. But in room 2, both the players may choose something else. So we have to keep a track of that in their own rooms too. So that's why we send the room unique ID. And we'll also create a button. So where we have player 1 choice, currently we are showing 3 buttons, but once you select a choice, I want to display only that. And then you should no longer be able to make another decision. So for that, let's create a button. Display to block, and I'll set the inner value as whatever is selected by user, so it can be rock, paper, or scissor. And then I'll empty that area which is player 1 choice, which is this area where we are seeing the 3 buttons. Okay, we don't see them here, we'll see them in a bit. So we'll clear that, and then we'll just append the player choice. Button to it. Okay, let's try to create a game. Player 2 joins the game. Now when I select paper, that's frozen now. When this player selects scissors, scissors get selected. And with that, the send choice function is now implemented. So let's go to our steps. So we have send choice in place. Now we'll be working on P1 choice and P2 choice. P1 choice and P2 choice are emitted from the client when send choice function is called. So we have to handle it now on the server. So we go to our server, just how we were handling create game and join game. We'll say socket on P1 choice. We'll get the value, which is the rock, paper, scissors value inside data. And we also have the room's unique ID. So for that room, in our rooms dictionary, for that unique ID, we'll set the P1 choice to the rock, paper, scissors value. And also we'll check if P2 has made the choice or not. So for the same room, if P2 choice is not null, then we'll try to declare a winner. and we'll send the room's unique ID so that from that room we can get P1 and P2's choice, compare them and declare a winner. Similarly, same will be done on P2 choice. We'll set the P2 choice, we'll check if P1 has made a choice or not, and then we'll try to declare a winner. So we'll implement this function, say here. Okay, it's taking the room ID. We can implement this later. Let's go back and do one thing. When any player is making a choice, let's change that in the display. Like here it says waiting for opponent. I want to change that to a text saying opponent has made a choice and you're left. So for that, whenever P1 is making a choice, I want to emit that to the room. Okay, so we're emitting to the same room, and the event that we're emitting is called P1 choice, and we're sending the rock paper scissors value. Now we can also not send it right away, but I'll not be displaying it anywhere on the UI, so I think we're fine. Similarly here, we'll emit P2 choice once P2 has made a choice. Now on the client, we'll handle these events. I'll do socket on P1 choice. I have to do something. So the first check that I'll make here is if P1 has made a choice, I'll check if you're not a P1, only then some action should be taken. Because if you are P1, then you are the one making the choice. Similarly, if P2 makes a choice, then we can check if you are P1, then something should change. And I'll just write a helper function here that goes by the name create opponent choice button, and I'll send the data, which is what the opponent has selected, to that function. Now inside that function, the first thing that I want to do is where we had the opponent state, where it said waiting for opponent, I just want to change it to say opponent made a choice. So let's try this. So you create a room, copy the code, the other player joins the room, and now when P1 selects paper, P2 knows opponent has made a choice. When P2 selects something, P1 knows opponent has made a choice. Okay, now I'll discretely hide it as a button, which we can display later once a winner has been declared. So let me go ahead and create a button, give it an ID because I want to refer to it later on. Initially I'll set its display to none, and it will have the value of the other user's choice. Okay, I'll just append this button, but since its display is none, it won't change anything in the output. Okay, with that we have the P1 choice and P2 choice in place for the server as well as the client. Now we need to work on the declare winner function, which we have here on the server. So declare winner was receiving room unique ID as an argument, and it's a very simple function. It will just check the P1 choice and P2 choice for that room and then just compare them on simple logic. You know, if it's rock, P1 has chosen rock. If P2 has chosen rock, then it's a draw. If P2 has chosen scissors, then P1 wins. If P2 has chosen paper, then P1 loses. So we'll just add those conditions here using if else. First, let's get the P1 choice and P2 choice. So we'll get it from the room. Then P2 choice. And let's say initially the winner is null. And then if P1 choice and P2 choice are the same, then it's a draw. Let's just denote that with a D. and else if, now these are just simple conditions. If P1 choice is paper, then there can be two scenarios. If P1 has chosen paper, we know P2 has not chosen paper. We have checked that firsthand. Then P2 can either choose scissor or rock. So if P2 choice is scissor, then we can say winner is P2 because scissor beats paper. And if P2 choice is not scissor, which means if it's rock, then paper beats rock and P1 is the winner. Similarly, another else if. So if P1 choice is rock and P2 is paper, then P2 wins. If P1 choice is rock and P1 is scissors, then and P2 is scissors, then P1 wins. Another else if for the final, if P1 is scissors and P2 is rock, then P2 is winning. If P1 is scissors and P2 is paper, then P1 is winning. So after this if else sequence, we'll have the winner set, and now the server can emit the winner, and that is the final event that this app will be emitting. So we'll be emitting to this room ID the event result, and we are in the body, we're sending the winner as either P1, P2 or D. Once this is done, we'll just go ahead and clear the rooms, the P1 and P2 choice of this room. Okay, that is the implementation of declare winner, and then we finally come to the result implementation on the client side. So socket on result. So let's say initially the winner text is blank. Then we can say the first condition can be if it's not a draw. So if data.winner is not equals to D. If it is equals to D, then we can set the winner text to it's a draw. Now the second condition comes if the winner is P1 and you are P1, then we can say you win. The next condition is if winner is P1 and you are not P1, then you lost or you lose. Similarly, if the winner is P2 and you are P2, you are not player 1, then you win. And if the winner is P2 and you are P1, then you lose. Otherwise it's a draw. Finally, we can hide the opponent state because opponent first was waiting, then it made a choice, and now we have the result. So after the if else, we'll hide the opponent state, and the opponent button, which was initially set to none, which is the choice of the opponent, that can be displayed now. And also in our winner area, we'll just add the winner text. Okay, let's give it a go. So you create a game, copy this code, you can join the game. This user selects rock, the other user selects paper. So this user wins who selected paper on rock, and this user lost who selected rock but was beaten by paper. Okay, let me just add a HR to separate this. Let's play it one more time. Okay, rock. The other goes rock, and it becomes a draw. Okay, like this game can be played. Now if you want to share it with your friends, let's add one more step, 14. Host the app on ngrok. ngrok is a small utility that lets you create a tunnel from your localhost to the internet, and it's fairly easy to use. You just have to run one command to expose your localhost any port on the internet. So for that, I'll open a new tab here, go to my rock paper scissors, or that was not needed. I'll just say ngrok, and then my app is running on port 3000, so I'll say http 3000. Now this URL that we receive here, we can share it with our friends. So I can share it with my friend and they can go to ngrok, they'll see the same game, and then you can play together. Say create game, get the code, join here. This guy wins, this guy loses. That's how it can be made available to any user. Now this is not the optimum way of deploying an application. This is only for test purpose, because this command or this URL stays active for as long as ngrok is running on your local. Like if I stop this will stop working. If you want me to create a video on how to host a static website or a full-fledged web app to a web server, let me know in the comments below and I'll create a video for it. I've added one more point here that says apply CSS styling. In this video, I won't be walking through the CSS code line by line. I'll be putting a link to the GitHub repository that will contain the CSS code also. If you want me to cover the CSS code, please put that in the comment section and maybe we can create a part 2 to this video. Now let's have a look at how the app looks now with the CSS in place. This is our welcome screen where I can go ahead and create a game. The other player can join the game, and then we are presented with our choices, rock, paper or scissors. Let's say I go with rock. The other player will make their choice and we get the result. It's the exact same code. Nothing has changed on the JavaScript side or on the HTML side. I've only added Bootstrap and some other classes to it and the image assets. I hope you liked the game and you can now use it to settle any dispute between you and your friends. You know the drill. If you liked the video, please share it with your friends. And for more learning content, please subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.